Finally.
All right. Thank you guys for waiting. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties, but here we are, and we're glad that you're all here. Yeah, welcome to this Q&A.
Welcome and welcome back if you're joining us again. And as always, hi, Dad. I have to give a shout out. Okay, so let's get started. My mouse doesn't work. Technical difficulties today. So let's get started. I guess for those of you that are just joining us or haven't really heard much about us or what we do, my name is Tamie with Expat Launcher, and this is Giannis.
Hi, I'm Giannis.
And what we do is we help you with health insurance setup, visa, resident permits, all different types.
Moving to Germany.
Moving to Germany in a nutshell. Okay. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. We will answer them live for you. While we are getting started, we will go ahead and answer some questions that have come in to us over the past few weeks. Let's do it. Ready?
All right.
All right.
And if you have any questions, then please, obviously, we first go with the people that are live with us. Just type them in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer all your questions about moving to Germany, visas, whatever, everything related to the topic.
Okay, so let's get started. First and foremost, the lovely Corona news.
We'll keep it short.
Keep it short on that one. So yeah, there's not much to talk about at this point right now with Corona. We know what's happening. We're checking, the rates, the risk areas, are changing and are being updated. There are still two categories for the risk areas, would be high risk areas and areas of variance of concern. For most people that we work with are coming from, say, US or, we'll just focus on US, I guess, today, would be high risk areas. So you can still enter as long as you have proof of vaccination, proof of recovery, and or a COVID test. We also say if you are entering now with proof of vaccination, also get a COVID test to prove that it is negative. Not necessarily for customs right now, that can change, but for airlines. We are seeing people enter that some airlines are requesting it, even though they have proof of vaccination, while some aren't even checking. So we just recommend for it.
It doesn't hurt. Just keep in mind that your departure location is most important, not your nationality. So if you're, let's say, a Canadian citizen living in Thailand, then you would have to look at entry restrictions from Thailand, not necessarily from Canada. Your nationality doesn't matter. It matters where you come from.
Where you're coming from. Correct. Okay, another thing in regards to Corona, and that will be the last thing we'll talk about. Unless you have questions, please put them in the comments. Vaccination, proof of vaccination. When you're living in Germany, but you have a vaccination certificate from another country. So let's talk about US specific. Your US vaccination, CDC, proof of card, whatever it may be, you can convert that in Germany at a pharmacy. And technically, you should be a resident or at the minimum already have your address registered. We're seeing that some people just go in with their passport, their US proof of vaccination. Pharmacies don't ask questions. They convert it. So what will happen is they will take your US vaccination proof. They will convert it, give you a nice lovely little piece of paper with QR codes for each dose that you've been given. And then you will take those QR codes and upload those into the German app, German EU app, whatever one you're using. The only thing I guess to say, a lot of people are saying, the apps don't work on my US phone. You have to make sure that you switch your phone into, Germany, EU.
Yeah, location Germany and your location settings. And then you'll be able to use the German COVID app. And then with that, you can, if you want to go to a bar or something like that, that actually checks the vaccinations, then you can use that.
Yeah, it's funny because I was talking to people last night, some of our clients last night in Berlin, they're like, they're checking. So I'm like, in Hamburg, Sorry, Hamburg, but I don't know if you're checking as much as
A
you
few
should
places
be.
are
A few
checking.
places, right? Okay, so let's get started with some questions. Good question that has come in recently is what are some challenging cities?
Yes. So there are difference with cities, and depending on how long you want to stay in Germany, you should base your decision on the city where you want to go to, a little bit on how well the foreigners office in those cities is working for you. Um, we noticed, especially with small towns, and then also as well with the bigger towns, Leipzig, Cologne, Nuremberg.
Oh, sorry, Nuremberg.
Sorry, Nuremberg. I'm
Not
from
even that
Nuremberg.
small, but
I'm from Nuremberg originally, but I hate to say the foreigners office there is very slow. Um, Look, if you're coming to Germany and you need to be in a specific city because you have a significant other there, or something similar, then okay, then that's what you have to do. But other than that, in those towns, you most likely will have to wait about 6 months until you get processed. So keep that in mind. And you probably have a smoother process in Munich, Hamburg, Berlin. Those are the cities that we would recommend you to go with.
and those cities normally take up to 6 months, right? So that's not even using pandemic or
Yes.
COVID as an excuse. That's just standard up to 6 months. They are turtle speed,
Yeah.
if you will. Okay, so next question. Can I register my address? I'm assuming German address from abroad. In short, no. I guess in total, no.
Yeah, that's easy.
Especially for first time, you have to go in person. They have to see your passport. They have to prove that it's you. So no, you have to do that when you're in Germany.
Yeah.
That was a quickie. That was short and sweet, right?
Mhm. And what are the steps to get the address registered as a follow-up?
Okay, so well, steps. I think I guess this goes into more the details of everything too. So steps first and foremost is finding a place to live.
Yeah.
That can be registered. So for countries that can come in, we say this all the time. If you can come into Germany and get a stamp in your passport that allows you to stay here 90 days, you have that 90-day period to find a place to live, line up your jobs, set up your health insurance, all of those things that you need to apply for your permit. First and foremost is a place to live. Nothing really gets started in Germany without having a place that you can register. That would be the first and foremost step. Once you have that place and you're here, you would need to register the address. Once your address is registered, you can start prepping for your permit. You know, simultaneously while you're looking for houses, you're looking for jobs, or once you have your apartment and that squared away, focus your time on getting prepared for the permit application. Once you have that squared away, it's a matter of applying for your permit, waiting for it to be approved, and then you're getting settled.
Yeah.
It's a real quick.
That's a good rundown.
Okay, if you have comments or questions, please leave them in the chat box. We greatly appreciate it. If not, we'll continue with the questions that have come in and yeah, go from there. The next question that has come in, do I need a German bank account for the first permit application?
No, you don't need to. Some offices might make it a little bit easier for yourself, but you don't. You can show your home country's bank account. It's just important that it shows the money in there. Depending a little bit on your permit, actually, let me put a little disclaimer for if you have a permit that allows you to work in Germany and generate income, so freelancers or employees, you can just show your home country's bank account. If you come here as a student, so not for working, then they want to see a blocked account, and that has to be with a German bank, because obviously as a student you're not going to generate income, and they want to see that you will be able to sustain yourself.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, a question came in from Michael. If the process takes at minimum 6 months, how is it possible if you're limited to a 90-day stay?
Good question.
Very good question. So you are allowed to stay longer once the application is filed. You will get an extension called a Fiktionsbescheinigung, but the application has to be made within the first 90 days. And then from that application date on, in those slower towns, it will take up to 6 months, and you'll just be allowed to stay on that extension, but it's very limiting. The problem is with the first year extension, it does not allow you to re-enter Germany. You can leave, but technically you're not allowed to come back. I know customs doesn't always do the best job at checking. So we know people that manage to get out and get back in. But you're risking not being able to, and you're not allowed to work.
Yeah.
So that's
it's a waiting
why,
period at that point. Yeah.
That's why it's just you're put on hold for a long time in those cities.
Yeah.
You can stay, but you're limited.
Yeah. So in those cities, that's why we do recommend going to other cities that process faster.
Yeah.
The downside to that, right, is if you really want to be in these cities that take a longer time, but you go to a city to get a permit, quicker, you have to move, you have to find a new place to live, you have to rearrange your life. The good thing is that once you do that, you don't have to reapply for your permit, right? You can, if you go to Berlin and you get set up and you decide that Berlin's not right for you and you want to move down to Leipzig or even further south, Cologne or something, then you can do that. And then it's a matter of changing your job and your housing and register your address, but your permit will stay with you. Come renewal, you will then apply in that city. You will renew in the new city that you're in. Renewals, even though not necessarily smoother, they allow you the right to have the same access you did as your first permit. So that means the entry rights, the working privilege, or whatever your permit type was. So that's the nice part about renewing in cities that are a little bit slower, is you still have the access to work and travel.
Yeah.
Yep. Long-winded way, Michael, to tell you that you were okay as long as you have everything in and submitted before your 90 days. That's the key thing, before.
Yes.
I always say, don't wait until the last day. Like, give them, a little bit of time to get it and confirm they've received it.
Very true.
We talk to people all the time going, I'm almost, I'm 89th day. What do I do? And it's So give yourself plenty of time to get everything in and get the confirmation they received it.
Yeah.
Great question.
Next question. Why are offices so backlogged? Why do they take so long? So one, they're a little bit slow, and two, Corona didn't really help.
Corona
we definitely saw a delay and a further slowdown of an already slow process. Now some offices have a lot of staff staying at home.
That's true.
And that just makes everything a little bit slower. And that's just my personal feeling, but I have a feeling that they're taking it as an excuse to
using Corona as a crutch, right? Yeah. Oh, Corona is still, still hanging on, keeping us slower. But it's just overall, we're seeing cities that process, pretty quickly, are even taking a few months to issue appointments. So you just have to know going into what city you're going to and their process and how long to expect. That way you don't have so many surprises going into it, I think is good. Okay. Do all offices process the same paperwork? Probably have to dissect this question a little bit, but for the most part, yes. Freelancing, there's a guideline typically. However, in our experience working with clients throughout Germany, it can be very different.
Yeah.
Offices and down to state, city to city, even district to district. Hamburg has several districts and they all process fairly differently. We've also seen it in the same office where agents process differently. So Yes, there should be a pretty standard of what you should be processing or what you should be providing, but some offices will have additional documents. They want to see different formats of things. So yes, it can be different.
Yeah, there's the differences in detail, right?
Yeah.
Like every office will want to see a health insurance, for instance.
Exactly.
But the standards of what health insurance is accepted in which office does vary quite a bit.
True.
So those would be things where what you need to show in general is the same everywhere, but when it comes to down to the details, to the nitty gritty, then there are differences between the city, definitely.
Yeah. Good. Okay, let's see. Next, I'm going right through these, right? Quick. Okay. Do schools take out money for taxes? As a freelancer, no. You are responsible as a freelancer to manage your own income, expenses, taxes, health insurance. All of those is out of pocket. If you are an employee, yes, they should be.
Yeah, very. Yeah, as an employee, you don't have to deal with taxes so much. You don't have to file taxes. You can if you want. As a freelancer, you're required to, and yeah, that's just more responsibility, I guess. More freedom, more responsibility.
That's a good way to look at it. More freedom, because you have more freedom. So that's a good way to look at it. I mean, it's not a bad thing. It sounds scary, but it's not a bad thing. There are plenty of accountants and assistants and bookkeeping tools to help you. So it's not a scary thing.
It's doable
to do.
for sure.
It's totally doable. Okay, let's go to the next one. I guess this isn't really a comment. This is just one of the things that we see from time to time is when people are talking to us or consultation calls. I read in a blog or someone said on Facebook, and they stick to this as the being end all be all what is supposed to happen. I would highly suggest to take those comments with a grain of salt. I think it's very important. I think Facebook and groups and blogs are amazing resources. You just have to look at it as maybe it's a one-time experience or someone's opinion. So don't rely too much on those things. Do you want anything to add to that? It's
definitely don't generalize too much, because a lot of things like what you read in the forums is like, hey, does this health insurance work? And then someone's like, yes, it does work. It worked for me. It's like you don't know anything about the details of the situation.
Their permit type,
like the exactly, you don't know what permit they applied for. They might not have applied for the same job as you did. They might not have applied in the same city as you did. It might have been at a different time. It might not even be the same policy, because every insurance company, people typically say, oh, I have Hanse Merkur insurance, but Hanse Merkur has like 10 different policies. So that doesn't tell you anything really what they signed up for. So just that's one of the big mistakes we see is people take that as gospel, where it's more a general guideline and it's helpful to have other people's experience.
Absolutely,
and I get that it can be calming to talk with other people that have done this process before you. Just don't necessarily take it as gospel, but rather look at it as a one-time person experience.
And we moderate different Facebook groups. We have our own Facebook pages and stuff. So we see things that are coming in, and sometimes we just go, it's very different, right? So what happens with one person may or may not happen with you. So just in short, take it with a grain of salt, but it is a good resource to, kind of hear different stories or.
That's true.
Okay. If you have comments, questions, again, sorry to say that every 5 minutes if you've been on here the whole time. How long does it take for my resident permit, and how long does it take to get my card?
So depending on the city, like we mentioned, some cities take up to 6 months. It does happen, and then in the worse cities and in the better cities, probably for a freelance permit, you're probably looking at for a really good case to realistic 8 weeks.
For permit card to be issued.
For the card to be issued. So what you have to take into account, the first thing that happens is that you apply. If you have a well-prepared packet, then at that point, your application will be processed. If you don't have everything because you're not perfectly prepared, the application process doesn't really start. All that's going to happen is that for the next 4 to 6 weeks or something like that, if an agent looks at it, they're just going to tell you, hey, we're still missing ABC, please send it to us. Yeah. And then you're in the back and forth situation and you lose time. So make sure you have a well-prepared packet and everything is ready from the get-go. And then typically, once the application is filed, what would you say? 6 to 8 weeks? Is that realistic?
Yeah, I mean, some offices will process really quickly, and it takes you another, 4 to 6 weeks to get an appointment to finalize it. So every office is different. I would say safely 2 to 4 months. Okay. Start, finish, perfect, drop off everything, getting your card. So,
to getting your card.
Yeah. Some cities. It just varies. It's such a hard question to ask because every office is different. For example, Berlin right now, Berlin is taking about 2 months, 3 months to issue appointments. So they will process if you send everything pretty quickly, but to finalize it, you have to wait, 2 months out to get to go in person, right? You go in person, they finalize it, they give you a nice little approval letter, and then you have another, 4 to 6 weeks, up to 8 weeks. Not really 8 weeks, but especially in Berlin, but 4 to 6 weeks to get at your card. Yeah. Right. Whereas Hamburg might get an appointment in a month, and they take another 4 weeks to process. So again, it goes back to variation of cities, which would be nicer if it was just like consistent, right?
That's true.
Would make our jobs easier. Okay, so I've stayed in Germany past my 90 days and have not applied for a permit. What do I do?
That's a real issue. If you're a lot over it, you most likely have to leave the country. There might be some exceptions to that rule if, for instance, like if you have a great reason why you overstayed that permit. So if, for instance, you got corona and you were in the hospital for a week, and then the day you get out of the hospital, you apply, and that's the reason why you're delayed. Most likely they will turn a blind eye for that, but no guarantees. So if you don't have a really, really good reason why you missed that deadline, that will be an issue for you, and you will have to exit the country, enter again, and do the whole thing all over.
Wait 90 days out and then come back in. So
exactly.
What we can't stress enough is just get it in before, even if you are just still trying to process, get the application started.
Absolutely.
Before that. Okay. Do I really need 2 letters of intent to teach English in Germany?
Yes.
You do. In short, one letter, just going to a foreigner's office with one letter as a freelancer is just, they can consider it fake self-employment. You need to show as a freelancer you work with multiple sources. Mm-hmm. And that's why at a minimum, they want to see 2 letters of intent. That's just no other way around that. Good question. Okay. Does the German government track this somehow? I am aware that one needs to give the immigration office letters to get a resident permit. What if I don't take one of the jobs and get a letter? So the letters of intent aren't binding unless you have a contract with it. There is an intention to work for that school, and there is an intention from the school to hire you. So you should be, when you present a letter, you should be working for that school. As a freelancer, if it's not a right fit, you can, as long as you have a contract and you have, proper notice to the school, you're allowed to go to another school as a freelancer. because your title, your resident permit is tied to your title, right? So language teacher, English teacher. If you had an employment permit, then your permit is tied to a particular school. That's where you can't just leave. So as a freelancer, yes, in short, are they digging through and checking? Should
No.
they? Probably, but they're not. It's just impossible. As a freelancer, you have the free right to work as long as you're working within that title. So if you're an English teacher, you can't go be a doctor or a lawyer or any other freelance, term. You have to do English teaching. Good question.
Also, just what's important, if you show letters of intent for company A and for company B, no one will check if you're really working with company A or company B. The only thing that's important is that you work with multiple different companies. As a freelancer, as a self-employed person, it's very important that you are in fact that. Self-employed, that means that you have to be independent, and you're only independent if you have multiple income streams. If all your income just comes from one company, you wouldn't be considered independent anymore, and then that would be an issue along those lines. So as long as you watch that you have multiple streams of income, it doesn't matter if those were the original letters of intent or not.
And that comes back to when you file taxes and stuff, right? So they are tracking income, and there are ways to see audits and all of that stuff on the tax side, right? So you have to think about that with renewal. But as a freelancer, multiple sources of income, especially as a teacher, right? You have multiple language schools. Once you have your permit, you can divide your time through schools, online, private teaching. So you have a variety of ways of making income from multiple sources. Good questions. Okay. Almost done here. Let's do one or two more. So is having around €1,000 enough to get started? No, for a few reasons, I would say, right?
Yeah.
You can answer it if you want.
So what we you're welcome.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for the question. So we recommend to have at least the equivalent of €5,000. That's because you want to present something to the visa office, because they will want to see that you are able to sustain yourself over the first few months, where maybe your income is not as steady as it will be later on. Also, if you're just coming with €1,000, you will blow through that money so quickly. In the beginning, you might need to get furnished apartments, which are more expensive. You might need to pay for a deposit on an apartment.
First month's rent.
Eat. Eat. You want to do something like you want to maybe do trips and stuff like that. €1,000 is way too low. Come at least with €5,000. That's what
that's a safe. Yeah, that's a safe number where the visa office is still, as a freelancer, right, focusing on your letters of intent, what you plan to make, and the bank cushion that they're looking for is enough for you to save, to have to get started.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you recommend I take a TEFL course prior to moving and teaching in Germany? Absolutely. I highly recommend it. Personally, I've done it myself. It helps you to be able to teach, especially if you're a first-time teacher. A lot of schools, it's preferred to have a TEFL certification or some sort of teaching certification. Also for the resident permit application, right? If you have no other prior experience or no college, degree you're presenting, it's really helpful for the round off your package for the resident permit, especially if you want to teach English as a foreign language. So highly recommend it. We'll put a link below to the academy that I went through, International TEFL Academy. I highly recommend going through them or, something similar. Absolutely. Okay. Think that's all we have. So if you have any other questions, you can put them in the chat box now. Otherwise, feel free to subscribe to our channel
and like this video.
Yay. hey, like this video, please.
Only if you like it, of course.
And if you have questions, feel free to email us at info@expatlauncher.com, and we have free consultations that we can set up. Of course, if you're clients and you're on this call, there are numerous ways to get a hold of us. So we'll be able to help you. Okay. One question that's come in. Let's see. Hi. What do I need if my application is still pending? I need to travel. Good question. So, question for that. You need a special permission, right? It's very hard to get from the authorities, but you would need it from the visa office to say that you can re-enter. You can travel. It's just a tricky part is getting back in. Yeah. As Jana mentioned earlier, U.S. passport holders tend to have a easier, I guess, they don't dig around too much, but you want to elaborate?
Yeah. So technically, that's a real problem during the penning of the application to travel outside of the Schengen area. So everything within Europe, within the Schengen area, there's no border controls anyway. So you're good to move around. I wouldn't worry about that. Leaving the Schengen area is a bit of an issue. From the legal side of things, it's not possible unless you get a special permission by the foreigners office, which they very rarely grant. Yeah. If it's an emergency, we personally know of a lot of people, especially US passport holders, that are able to do it. Although it's not technical, it shouldn't be possible, but people are just very lenient with US passport holders. That would be on your own risk. There's a good chance that it will work, but unfortunately, we can't necessarily guarantee that it does work in every case.
Yeah, the only thing we would have to do in that case is submit a request to the agent and say this is an emergency. We need to leave pending, applications taking 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is. That would be at the mercy of that. We have seen people that have leave and they brought their proof that they've applied, they've brought their on-meld on, they've brought their rental contract, and the customs don't bat an eye. But I personally just am nervous Nelly at everything. I wouldn't want to do it, but some people, they do. So if you're a client, then we will certainly request for it. Good question. Okay, one more question's come in. Do I need a German language certificate such as a B1 level in order to be employed as an English teacher? Good question. No. You will find schools that ask if you have some sort of German level to work there. But at the end of the day, if you're an English teacher, most schools will want you to speak English to their staff. I think what happens when schools ask, typically, if you have a certain level of knowledge of German, it's because the staff aren't native speakers, right? So you're working with other staff members and they maybe are more comfortable with speaking German as opposed to speaking English where it's not their native language. So
correct.
Yeah, in a nutshell, you'll be fine. And you should be fine with most language schools. Yeah. You are welcome. Okay, so any other questions, then feel free to email us. Thank you guys so much for joining. I'm sorry we were a little technical difficulty getting started. We host these monthly. So on Instagram, Facebook, we will post the next one once we have the date ready. Also, tomorrow evening, we're doing a more in-depth webinar through International TEFL for those English teachers that have gone through their program or interested in taking a TEFL course. That might be really helpful to learn more about teaching English in Germany, visa process, health insurance, schools, all the differences. So, we will, I guess, put a link below for that.
We can do that.
It's easy enough.
All right.
Thank you guys so much for joining. We really appreciate it. And
enjoy your evening. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Take care, guys.